Well, good day, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of WTF Walk the Floors. I'm Stephanie Ledger with First Rate Hospitality, and I'm joined with my co host, Michele Kline of Kline Hospitality. How are you today, Michele?
Hello, Stephanie, and hello, everyone on the other side. I am doing fantastic and I'm excited about today's topic. I'll tell you what it is. We're going to talk about service failure recovery. And if there is something that you and I know for over 20 something years that we've been doing this, is that in any operation, there is service failure. What separates us from doing well or not doing so well and having those guests come back to us is the way we recover from it. So I know, Stephanie, that this topic is very dear to your heart and you get very excited about it.
Yes.
So walk us through some of the steps that if you were to create the perfect formula for service failure recovery, what would those steps look like? The must-dos.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is with assessing. And usually we are able to assess through the guest surveys, being able to also do employee surveys. But the main thing is that when you're assessing is acting upon it. Because how many times have we seen the guest surveys and the guest is still complaining about saying slow service by the pool? And now we've been seeing it for about 6 weeks and we're just making excuses after excuses. Oh, we're short staffed, or oh, the location where the service bar or the where the kitchen is located, there's a delay. There's nothing we can do. Yes, but there's still something that we can be able to do to act upon it and acknowledge it before it hits the guest survey and the guest is providing feedback. So with assessing, I would have to say, first off, is making sure that you're acting upon your assessment. Otherwise, you're just wasting everyone's time by saying, yes, we're going to assess.
Right. And I was laughing because I could remember very vividly one particular project that I worked on where the information was right there. What's the guest saying, right? We look at average resolution time. We look at customer service abandonment rates. We looked at first response time, resolution rates. You name it. Customer retention rate. Now, when the information is right in front of you, dust in the room, dust in the room, dust in the room. And out of the 3 towers, there's this one tower where the issue is always dust in the room. And the reply from the director of housekeeping tends to be, or I would say this is real story, right? So the reply from the response from the director of housekeeping is, but we are dusting. It's part of our routine inside the room. So at that point, you're like, okay, it's clearly not what the guest is saying. Let's go check on some rooms. And we still find dust in the room. And what happens next? Has anyone ever thought of perhaps opening the AC units to see what's on the other side, which is probably causing the dust? So your room attendant is really dusting the room. So at this point, it's not even a housekeeping issue anymore, but it's hitting the housekeeping numbers, right?
Yes.
It's an engineering thing. Is this part of our PM program? Well, we actually haven't had a PM program for like 2.5 years when, they eliminated X amount of positions. So we have to work with the data. I
Yeah.
agree with you 100%. Use the data to your advantage. It's there.
Yes. And even with that data is then also to of making sure that you're finding the root cause and doing, the breakdown. A way that I do the training and consulting with hotels is it's called the 5 whys. Okay, well, why? And then why is dust still happening? Okay, well, it's, we're not replacing the AC filters. Okay, well, why not? Well, it's because it's not on our PM program. Well, why not? Well, because we don't know how to do a proper PM program. Okay, well, why not? Not proper training, the leadership, executive level, not holding accountability, those types of things. But just a simple way of taking a situation and just keep going with the whys. And then you'll be able to easily find out what the root cause is and being able to see how we can now be able to change and act upon that root cause.
100% agree. Absolutely. All right. What's next on your list of steps?
So then also too is with showing the empathy. Now going back to the assessment where we have the guest surveys, but then you have to realize that guest feelings are facts. So when that guest is having a service recovery because the rollaway bed isn't being delivered promptly. And not saying that it needs to be delivered within 2 minutes, but here, a family has called and asked for the rollaway, which they actually had already put in the request in the reservation. And now they're screaming on the phone to needing their rollaway because it's time for the kids to go to bed. And you were
Yeah.
like, well, okay, it's only been, 10, 15 minutes. We are a hotel that has over 500 rooms, but you have to take those attitudes of what the guest is saying as facts. To you it may not be as upsetting, but to the guests it is life or death situation in some situations. And I'm sure you completely understand, traveling with kids and being able to, having that empathy of understanding when a parent is needing something right away or more urgently.
Yes, and we talk about the difference of sympathy and empathy, right? And when it comes to empathy, you're not only comprehending, but you're also putting yourself in that person's shoes. And
Yes.
the reality is, if we don't understand what's happening on the other side, then it's going to be very difficult to display genuine empathy. So
Yes.
I would say, as a tip, is for anyone standing with that guest on the other side, and this is a tip to be used internally with your team members as well, it's about empathy all along, is listen with the intention of comprehending and not answering.
Mm-hmm.
Just zip it, right? Be present, ask questions with curiosity, because the questions that you're asking with curiosity are really going to take you to the finish line when it comes to really comprehending what is it that's happening on the other side and what the best solution is going to look like. Because the more information I have, the better I'm going to be able to recover, right, from
Yeah.
that failure.
Yeah.
Being present,
Absolutely.
letting go of your biases. If you're constantly thinking, oh, this person is the one that is causing trouble, this person is the classic guest that is going to cause the trouble, or a team member, then we're being biased. When we're being biased, there's no way we're going to take the recovery to the finish line in a positive way, right? The other
Yep.
one that I would say when it comes to empathy is um, the fact of offering unsolicited advice. We can offer advice at a certain um, step of the way in the conversation, but sometimes the other person just wants us to listen,
Yep.
right? Sometimes the guest just wants to get it off their chest, and that's what we have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from body language perspective, I would say making sure that we are constantly making eye contact, because that's going to
Yes.
make the other person also trust and lean in and truly give us information without adding any condiment to it just to make it sound more dramatic, because they know that through making eye contact, we are genuinely interested in fixing the problem.
Absolutely. And yeah, I had it even on my notes too of talking about those nonverbal cues as well. And most of the time, when we're talking to the guests, if we're at the front desk, there's a barrier in
Yeah.
between us. But there's ways to making sure that either if you have quick access to being able to walk around the front desk and really being able to show your undivided attention to the guests, and how you were even saying with your eye contact, even the way that you're having your stance and your arms, and you want to making sure that you're having that openness for the guests so they feel comfortable with what they're sharing, that they see that you're showing that genuine empathy and want to take care of the situation.
Yes, absolutely. Great tips. Anything else we should add?
All right. So then here lastly is empowerment. So, we've started off with assessing, okay, trying to figure where the root cause is, and then now showing when the guest is talking to us about, when I was working in the hotel, we couldn't say complaints. We had to say opportunities. And so
Of
when these
course.
opportunities would arise, you wanted to making sure that your team has the empowerment to being able to act upon and
Yes.
recover the situation quickly. And there's a lot of ways with empowerment. One way I would have to say is showing the confidence when you're saying a way to being able to recover. Because a lot of times we may just go off and say, oh, here, I'll take off $50 off of your room bill. Well, that's not really helping the situation. If it is, wanting that rollaway bed for their kid to being able to sleep. And I would have to say to our listeners that are leaders, come up with 5 of your go-to scenarios and how that recovery would be able to be beneficial for the property and for the guests, because we want to making sure that recovery is equal to what that um guest opportunity is. And this also too would then build the confidence for your team members when they are in this situation, if being able to then now just go through the process and giving solutions to the guests. But empowerment and confidence and having your go-to solutions goes a long way too with your service recovery.
100%. Plus, it brings the added value of that team member feeling valued. Because
Yes.
now they
Yeah.
are able to think about how to solve this problem on their own and take that to the finish line. I love that.
Yeah.
Anything that you think of that you could close with, Stephanie, when it comes to tips around this topic? Or maybe you
I
want to
mean,
share one of your WTF moments when it comes to this.
well, I would have to say, out of anything, the theme is of also too of just supporting your team. So, unfortunately, you may be the one that gets that guest that's in a very irate attitude, but seeing how you can be able to support one another instead of them being able to take the brunt. You're overhearing. Okay, they're talking about by the beach, there's not enough towels. Okay, well, let me see if I can see if there's any towels in the back, while the your employee or your team members, talking to the guest. And I think that goes a long way with supporting during these situations. But WTF moment, I mean, there's so many on failure recovery that I feel like we've both have experienced as a leader working with another department, and then also too on the guest side, and how we were talking about earlier with the dust and the AC vents. Is so when I'm doing the service evaluations, I'm always taking a look and taking a photo of what their air filter, and I've experienced it firsthand, where I didn't even feel comfortable turning on the AC because I just felt like I was going to get sick from all the dust
Ah,
moving around, and it was just, and then the room attendant left their rag in the room, so you already really didn't feel like the room was clean. But yeah, there's so many WTF moments. But as we keep talking about it here in our episodes, a lot can be avoided by just walking the floors and supporting your team members. What else you got, Michelle?
absolutely. Yes, I agree with all of that. I don't even want to tell you my latest story about turning on the heater when the hotel was not ready for that, but it was really
Oh,
cold in Colorado, and being sick for 6 weeks after because of that. So massive sinus infection. Great. I don't want to go
yeah.
there. However, I am with you. I piggyback on what you just said. Empower your team, walk the floors, get an understanding of what they deal with. And I love something that you said, which was prep the flow of point A to point B to point C to point D of how to recover specific areas of opportunity, because every department has maybe five very clear examples that
Yeah,
happen on and on and on and on and on. So if at least you're able to give them the roadmap as to how to fix it, then they can replicate that in similar situations. And again, making them feel empowered, allowing them to build that extra level of confidence, and proving that you trust what they can do as individual contributors.
absolutely. I just want to add one more tip on what you're saying with that follow through is with spring break and a lot of high impact holiday weekends coming up, is that we do all of this planning to having different activities, but let's make sure that we're looking at it from the guest point of view. Okay, where that activity is being located, or do we have enough towels, and trying to avoid a lot of these guest complaints. Now, with that, of making sure that you're having now a review, either whether it be a review session with the different departments or just writing down your notes. So then, now when it comes back up, you're able to look to see, wow, where were a lot of the high guest opportunities that now we can be able to act upon ahead of time. But there's so much planning where we do just about that first phase and not about that the rest of the guest experience. And then all the time and it just turns into a WTF moment.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your insight on this topic. I know we're both very passionate and we could talk about this and share stories forever, but we don't have that kind of time. For anyone out there who's looking at developing their team when it comes to a topic like this one, we have one full module where we focus specifically on service failure recovery and how to do it with grace, where you will not only engage your guests, but you will also engage your team members. So thanks for being on the other side, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.